For years, Hollywood celebrated a golden couple, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Together, they embodied glamour, power, and compassion. On red carpets, they dazzled the world. In distant refugee camps, they posed as symbols of empathy and hope. With 6 children, both biological and adopted, they built what seemed like the perfect modern family, a household where beauty, talent, and humanitarian ideals merged into a single image of perfection. Brad Pitt, twice crowned People's Sexiest Man Alive, appeared to the world not only as the ultimate movie star, but as the ideal father, an icon of masculinity softened by tenderness. Angelina Jolie, once Hollywood's most rebellious actress, had transformed into a global humanitarian, a United Nations ambassador, using her fame for causes larger than herself. Together, they became Brangelina, a brand as much as a marriage. Their lives documented and mythologized by every magazine and television screen across the globe. But behind the carefully curated photographs and the dazzling smiles lay a very different story. Their love, which began on a film set, would unravel in front of the entire world. Allegations of substance abuse, heated confrontations on private jets, courtroom battles over custody, and bitter disputes over fortune and property would soon dominate headlines. The marriage, once hailed as Hollywood's fairy tale, became Hollywood's most publicized war. The man who had everything, beauty, fame, fortune, suddenly found himself painted as a villain, fighting not only for his career, but for the right to remain in his children's lives. But the truth behind Hollywood's golden couple is much darker. Before the red carpets, the movie star glow, and the relentless flash of paparazzi cameras, William Bradley Pitt was just a boy from the American Midwest. He was born on the 18th of December, 1963, in Shawnee, Oklahoma, the first son of Jane Etta, a school counselor, and William Alvin Pitt, a truck company owner. The Pitts were a conservative, church-going family, humble, disciplined, and rooted in traditional values. Soon after his birth, the family moved to Springfield, Missouri, where Brad and his younger siblings, Doug and Julie, would grow up. Springfield was a far cry from Hollywood. It was small-town America, high school football games on Friday nights, church on Sundays, and summers filled with fishing trips and backyard barbecues. The Pitts lived comfortably, but theirs was not a life of glamour. Brad's father worked tirelessly to keep his trucking business afloat, instilling in his son a strict work ethic and a belief in perseverance. His mother, gentle but firm, nurtured Brad's curiosity and sense of empathy, qualities that would later define many of his performances on screen. From an early age, Brad was fascinated by the world beyond Springfield. He devoured movies, especially the epics and dramas that played at the local drive-in theaters. He admired icons like Paul Newman and James Dean, men whose presence on screen seemed larger than life. To young Brad, those films were windows into another universe, a place where anything was possible, far removed from the quiet routines of Missouri. At Kickapoo High School, Brad was a popular student, handsome, athletic, and charismatic. He played golf, tennis, and basketball, but he also had a knack for performance. Teachers recalled his easy charm, the way he could make classmates laugh or captivate an audience during school debates and plays. Yet, for all his magnetism, Brad remained modest, never fully convinced that a life in the spotlight was attainable. After high school, Pitt enrolled at the University of Missouri in 1982, majoring in journalism with a focus on advertising. At first, he seemed destined for a conventional career path, a stable job, a predictable life. But as graduation neared, he felt a restlessness gnawing at him. Hollywood was calling, even if he didn't yet dare to admit it out loud. Just 2 weeks before finishing his degree, Pitt made a decision that shocked his friends and family. He packed up his old Datsun and drove west to California, leaving behind the security of a diploma for the uncertainty of Hollywood. He had just a few $100s in his pocket and no connections in the industry. All he had was ambition and the willingness to start from scratch. Los Angeles, however, was no fairy tale. To survive, Pitt worked odd jobs, chauffeuring strippers to parties, moving refrigerators, even dressing up as a giant chicken to lure customers into a fast food restaurant called El Pollo Loco. It was humiliating, exhausting work, but he accepted it with quiet determination. He was chasing a dream that seemed impossibly far away, yet somehow inevitable. At the same time, He threw himself into acting classes, studying under teachers who drilled him in the craft of performance. He watched, listened, and learned, slowly discovering how to channel his natural charisma into something more disciplined, more powerful. Those years of struggle hardened him, transforming the boy from Missouri into a young man ready to take on the world. Brad Pitt's story could have ended there with a young dreamer lost in the endless shuffle of Hollywood hopefuls, but fate had other plans. His next chapter would prove that persistence, timing, and undeniable talent could open doors even he never imagined. Brad Pitt's Hollywood journey did not begin with instant stardom. Like countless young actors, he started with bit parts, uncredited appearances in television shows like Dallas and Growing Pains, where his charm caught attention but hardly guaranteed a career. He worked tirelessly, auditioning for every role he could find, often losing out to actors with more experience or connections. Yet Pitt had something intangible, an ease in front of the camera, a look that drew audiences in, and a simmering intensity beneath the surface. His first significant break came in 1991 with a film that wasn't even his own, Thelma and Louise. Cast as a young drifter named J.D., Pitt's screen time amounted to just a few minutes. But those minutes were electric. In a single scene, shirtless, cowboy hat tilted, flashing that mischievous grin, he turned heads across the industry. Overnight, Brad Pitt was no longer just another struggling actor. He became the new sex symbol of Hollywood. Critics called it the role that made Brad Pitt a star, and studios began to take notice. Throughout the early 1992nd, Pitt built on that momentum. In A River Runs Through It, 1992, directed by Robert Redford, he showcased not just his looks, but a depth of sensitivity that surprised critics. The performance hinted that he could be more than a pin-up idol. He could carry the emotional weight of a film. In Legends of the Fall, 1994, his portrayal of Tristan Ludlow, rebellious, passionate, and tragic, cemented him as both a box office draw and a dramatic actor. Women adored him, men respected him, and Hollywood realized it had found its next leading man. But Pitt was never content with being just a pretty face. He deliberately sought roles that challenged the perception of him as a matinee idol. In Seven, 1995, opposite Morgan Freeman, he plunged into darkness as Detective David Mills, a man unraveling while chasing a sadistic serial killer. The film's shocking ending became iconic, and Pitt's performance proved he could handle grit as well as glamour. Just 4 years later, he appeared in Fight Club, 1999, David Fincher's cult masterpiece. As Tyler Durden, Pitt embodied raw charisma, chaos, and rebellion. The film was polarizing at first, but later became a cultural touchstone, with Pitt's performance etched into cinematic history. By the end of the 1992nd, Brad Pitt had become more than an actor, he was a phenomenon. He was named Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine not once but twice, a rare honor. His face adorned magazine covers worldwide, and his every move was scrutinized by tabloids. Yet behind the scenes, Pitt remained restless, eager to prove he was more than the labels attached to him. The early 2002 only expanded his empire. He starred in blockbusters like Troy, 2004, where his portrayal of Achilles combined physical perfection with emotional complexity, and Mrs. Smith, 2005, the action comedy that will alter his life forever. Starring opposite Angelina Jolie, Pitt's on-screen chemistry spilled into real life, igniting one of the most talked about romances in Hollywood history. What began as whispers on set quickly exploded into global headlines. Brad Pitt was leaving Jennifer Aniston, America's sweetheart, for Jolie. The scandal was relentless. Tabloids turned it into a love triangle saga, with Aniston cast as the wounded wife, Jolie as the femme fatale, and Pitt as the man torn between them. For months, the story dominated entertainment media. Fans were divided, yet the controversy only increased Pitt's visibility. Brangelina became a household name, a power couple that seemed untouchable. Together, they built an image of a modern family adopting children from Cambodia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam, and later welcoming biological children of their own. Professionally, Pitt thrived even amidst the chaos. He showed his comedic chops in Burn After Reading, 2008, delivered a nuanced performance in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, 2008, and finally won an Academy Award as a producer for 12 Years a Slave, 2013. His reputation shifted from heartthrob to serious actor and influential producer, capable of shaping Hollywood from both in front of and behind the camera. By the mid-2010 Pitt stood at the pinnacle of his career. With a family admired worldwide, a body of work spanning critically acclaimed films and box office hits, and the image of Hollywood's most beloved leading man, it seemed he had everything anyone could want: beauty, wealth, talent, and love. But as history has shown, the higher the pedestal, the greater the fall. And Brad Pitt's fall would not come from a failed film or a career slump. It would come from the very thing that once made him appear untouchable: his family. By 2016, the golden image of Brangelina had begun to fracture. What the public had admired as a perfect family, a household of 6 children, exotic adoptions, and celebrity philanthropy was quietly, painfully unraveling behind closed doors. Reports began to emerge of heated arguments and tension during flights, alleged disputes over parenting decisions, and struggles with alcohol. The world learned the news on the 20th of September 2016. Angelina Jolie filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Immediately, the story became a global media frenzy. Headlines painted vivid pictures. Hollywood's power couple breaks apart. Custody battles erupt. Brad Pitt accused of aggressive behavior. Tabloids speculated endlessly, and every gesture, every facial expression captured at the airport or on set was analyzed and scrutinized. Among the most shocking revelations were allegations that Brad had engaged in a physical altercation with one of their children during a flight. While investigations were inconclusive and authorities eventually cleared Pitt of wrongdoing, the accusations left a lasting mark. The narrative shifted suddenly. The man who had been the ultimate heartthrob and devoted father was portrayed in the media as volatile, unstable, and a potential danger to his own family. The couple's shared properties became points of contention. Their $60 million French vineyard, Chateau Miraval, and their sprawling Los Angeles estates became tangled in legal disputes. Every move Pitt made, whether professionally or personally, was interpreted through the lens of scandal. Even charity work and new film projects were overshadowed by the lingering questions about his character and his role as a father. Meanwhile, Pitt's public image suffered a subtle but profound erosion. Interviews became carefully controlled, his social media presence limited, and he often remained silent, allowing the media to narrate his story. Fans and critics alike speculated about the man behind the silver screen. Was he truly the compassionate, charismatic actor they had adored? Or had Hollywood's pressures revealed a darker side? Emotionally, the toll was immense. Pitt reportedly sought therapy to manage the stress and to navigate the complex emotions of separation and public scrutiny. Friends described him as withdrawn at times, protective of his children, and painfully aware of how much of his personal life had been exploited by the press. It was a stark contrast to the confident, carefree actor who had once casually wandered onto the set of Thelma and Louise, unknowingly announcing his arrival in Hollywood. Even as Brad worked to maintain custody arrangements and to co-parent his children, the narrative remained unrelenting. The public spectacle of a fractured family, so unlike the glamorous images they had cultivated for years, exposed the vulnerability of even the most powerful Hollywood figures. Fame, fortune, and beauty provided no immunity from personal tragedy. And yet, amid this dark period, Brad Pitt's resilience began to emerge. Just as he had transformed struggles into performance in his early acting career, he began to reclaim his life piece by piece, finding solace in his work, reconnecting with his passions, and slowly redefining what it meant to be both a father and a man in the relentless glare of public scrutiny. The fall from grace was steep, the headlines unforgiving, but for Brad Pitt, this was not the end. The next chapter would test not only his career but the very core of his identity. By 2017, the private conflict between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie had become a full-scale public spectacle. The couple's divorce, once framed as irreconcilable differences, had escalated into a bitter custody battle over their 6 children. The media dissected every hearing, every legal filing, every public appearance, turning the personal lives of both adults and especially the children into front-page entertainment. Court documents revealed accusations and counter-accusations. Pitt was accused of substance abuse and inappropriate behavior, while Jolie faced scrutiny over her own parenting decisions. Confidential letters, interviews with friends and family, and anonymous sources flooded the tabloids. The narrative was merciless, painting a picture of a fractured family caught in the relentless machinery of Hollywood's gossip machine. The emotional toll on Pitt was profound. Friends described him as a man haunted by guilt and regret, tormented by the possibility of losing his children. He retreated from public life, focused intensely on therapy, and leaned on the few trusted confidants who could navigate the storm. Despite his efforts, paparazzi captured moments of distress. Pitt alone at airports, visibly exhausted, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights and public judgment. Professionally, he continued to work, but even his career became a backdrop to personal turmoil. Awards shows, film premieres, and magazine covers, all once symbols of triumph, now felt like stages for scrutiny. Interviews were fraught with caution. Every word and gesture could be twisted into scandal. Yet Pitt pressed on, seeking redemption through his craft and through careful rebuilding of his public image. The custody battle dragged on for years, marked by private mediations and public speculation. Despite the acrimony, both parents made concerted efforts to shield their children from the media glare. Pitt's devotion as a father, often overshadowed by sensational headlines, became a quiet, steadfast undercurrent, a reminder that beneath the Hollywood persona lay a man deeply committed to his family. Yet the tragedy was unmistakable. What had once been celebrated as the pinnacle of Hollywood romance, Brangelina, was now a cautionary tale of fame, power, and human fragility. The love that had sparked global fascination had ended in heartbreak, and the children remained caught in a storm of public curiosity and legal maneuvering. Through it all, Brad Pitt emerged battered but unbroken. The climax of his personal tragedy was not a single catastrophic event, but a prolonged erosion of privacy, trust, and certainty. It was a slow, painful unraveling that exposed the vulnerability beneath the Hollywood legend, a reminder that no amount of fame or fortune could shield him from the most human of experiences: loss, regret, and the fight to protect those he loved. As the dust of scandal settled, a man once idolized for his perfection in the public eye was left to rebuild not just his career, but his life. What remained was the opportunity for reflection, reinvention, and the slow journey toward healing. Today, Brad Pitt stands as one of the most enduring figures in Hollywood, a man whose life has been defined as much by struggle as by triumph. His career, spanning over 3 decades, continues to captivate audiences, blending box office appeal with critically acclaimed performances. From Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for which he finally won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, to his work as a producer on socially resonant films like 12 Years a Slave and Ad Astra, Pitt has solidified a legacy that transcends mere celebrity. But it is not only his professional achievements that define him. The trials of his personal life, the very public divorce, the custody battles, and the media scrutiny have reshaped him in ways that are less visible but no less significant. Pitt has spoken openly about therapy, self-reflection, and his ongoing commitment to growth, revealing a vulnerability that contrasts sharply with the confident, magnetic actor who first appeared on screens in the early 1992nd. He has also embraced fatherhood with renewed dedication. Despite the turbulence of the past decade, Pitt has maintained close relationships with his 6 children, striving to balance public attention with private care. His experiences have infused him with a deeper empathy, a recognition that fame is fleeting but family endures. Brad Pitt's story is a testament to the duality of Hollywood, the dazzling allure of fame and the harsh glare of scrutiny. He embodies both the dream and the cautionary tale, the heights of success achieved through talent, ambition, and charm, and the depths of personal trial imposed by the pressures of public life. Ultimately, his journey reminds us that even the most celebrated figures are human, capable of brilliance and error alike. The man behind the iconic roles, the red carpet appearances, and the world's fascination is still navigating the complexities of life, love, and legacy. Brad Pitt remains not only a symbol of cinematic excellence, but also an emblem of resilience, a man who has endured, evolved, and continues to leave an indelible mark on Hollywood. And as his story continues to unfold, it carries a lesson as timeless as the films he stars in. Even under the brightest lights, the human heart endures, learns, and sometimes quietly heals.